Hey guys, going to do a video of the LDT MCX, the SIG MCX, which is one of the newer gel blasters on the market. It's the first one we've had here at Azraels in the Armoury, which means it's the first one that has had an Apache put in it. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Gotcha. Sorry, terrible. So SIG MCX, it is the LDT split box, so it's the LDX, more of the basic split gearbox, but it is a straight up V2. So we put an Apache in it. Couple of things just to talk through. Apache wise, it drops straight on in. Being that the LDT War Interest T-piece is very similar to a generic, if you want to call it that, or a universal T-piece, so very similar to our red aluminium T-piece, very similar to a Wells T-piece. That meant we didn't have to change it. So this is 100% stock as it came to us. When it came to us with the standard barrel and obviously the tappet, the cylinder head, it was about 240 FPS and fed okay. It did stop feeding every now and again. What we've done is, as I said, it does have an Apache in there. Now for those of you that are doing Apache builds on an MCX, standard T-piece, the ideal fitment was 3 of our spacer O-rings. So if you take one off, so you can see the 3 O-rings there, with our rubber tip glued on, that was our final setting. That's where the compression was the best, feeding was the best, exactly how it was designed, because that T-piece is near identical to the red universal outdoor one that we use. So 3 rubbers, O-rings and our rubber tip, straight in. Depth was great, FPS was great. The one thing we did find is the T-piece had a little O-ring through it, which would be what was hindering the feeding from brand new as well. So we did pull that one out and it now feeds perfectly without that O-ring on there. The gearbox was shimmed beautifully from factory. I would say, Shannon said perfectly. He commented that someone's built this gearbox, A, knew what they were doing, and B, was allowed to spend the time to shim a box. So the shimming was perfect. The gears were spun perfectly. The free play was spot on, so it didn't need reshimming. Shannon has radiused the lower of the gearbox, I believe, the lower part of the cylinder housing. He hasn't done the front part purely because there's not enough meat there if he does do that. So he didn't do that, didn't want to take away too much meat because there's a screw there, I believe. So the only other thing we've done, bar checking out, re-greasing, etc., the gearbox was dry, but it did have the correct shimming, is it does now have a 35 centimeter Aztech barrel in there, because the owner wanted to run the barrel extension. From here forward can be removed, so you can run short barrel or long barrel, and the factory aluminium barrel does run to the short side. So it's now got the Aztech barrel in there, 7.25 Aztech, which takes it perfectly to there, hasn't had to shorten it, so you can run your hop-up or muzzle devices and things straight on. Now, with the Apache in there, the tappet and everything missing, the only other thing Shannon did is it does have an Aztech piston head on the factory piston body. Piston body was perfectly fine. They're one of the polyacetal, I think they're called, piston bodies, and it worked really well. So with the new barrel in there, the Apache standard spring, it does have our Viton O-ring on our piston head. It's now at 300 FPS, 300 to 310, which is a nice 60 FPS jump over factory. So that will be a combination of slightly bigger barrel, the cylinder head is a little more efficient, a better seal, and Shannon has reported it to suit the longer barrel. Having said that, it didn't need reporting because it had a 90% cylinder in it for a short barrel. So actually 90% is pretty well perfect on 35 centimeter. So it's now just working more efficiently. 2 things that just point out is just anything for MCX owners to just look at is, whilst the gearbox is nicely shimmed, the AOE is corrected, it's Sorbra padded. Well, actually, no, it's not Sorbra padded, sorry, because it's got an Apache. The grip angle and how tight the motor is in the grip to be honest, made it impossible to take away the winding noise of the motor. Purely for backup testing purposes, Shannon did put on one of our very, very consistent APS Phantom overload grips, purely to test if the grip angle, and straight away the winding noise went and it sounds like a perfect clacker, as we call it. So anyone that is working with this grip and the standard motor, I don't think you're going to be able to take away mechanical noise. Smaller motor may be fine, but that motor is incredibly tight in that grip. When you take off the base plate, the motor doesn't pop out. The spring that's up here, obviously on the drive, does not have the pressure to push it out, so it's very, very tight. That's a factory thing. Obviously that's how they make them, but for anyone wanting to do perfect pinion to bevel alignment, keep it quiet, get that clacker noise that all of Shannon's builds are known for, you will probably have to change that grip. Now the only other thing I want to point out is up in the front guard. So one other thing that we've done for the owner is we have shortened the charging handle, which the bolt would come all the way up the front here. Now, being front wired, the battery is supposed to go up the front here. So this is not bolted on for now. So as you can see, the silver face here is where Shannon's cut. It used to come all the way up, and that was on the owner's request because he's probably going to remove this fake gas block so that he can run a bigger battery, i.e. a couple of batteries, you know, the nunchuck style. So to do that, we've cut that charging handle back, which obviously doesn't do anything. It's just purely there for cosmetics. If you remove this gas block, you can then actually get, or potentially, we haven't got the batteries here to do it, but the owner could potentially then run the front wire with the battery down, top and bottom. Personally, for myself, if I was running an MCX, I don't want to see the battery through the front guard. So I would either black out in here, line it with something, or we would actually recommend drilling through the back here and running a rear battery in here. You could run a bigger brick battery in there, hide it away fairly nicely. On that with wiring, one other thing that Shannon wanted me to really stress, particularly for the owner when he comes to pick it up, is the wiring passes through here. That's factory. Now when the front guard comes on, let's see if I can do this upside down. When the front guard comes on, this here passes through there, and then this pin passes through the hole. You have to be very, very careful that that wiring doesn't drop down, because this here can crush it. And you can't really do anything to protect it without rewiring it and completely change it. Let me just position this better. There we go, we're on the rails now. So as this slides in, that's already contacting that wire. So for those of you running front wire, and this is coming on off all the time, got to keep an eye on that wiring there, because if that wears through, obviously it's going to short out and you're going to have a live fore end. So for this one, it is staying front wired for now at least. The customer didn't request it to be rear wired, so that's something that we will suggest, we will recommend, and obviously we're part of it. The other thing you could do is, obviously with your front guard on, you could actually do a wiring extension so that you have your plug out the front, put your battery in and kind of shovel it all down in there. But then you've got a lot of wiring and obviously you can see through the front guard. So we've left the pin through the upper and lower receiver, purely because obviously taking the pin out to release that as well, the upper and lower receiver will split as well. So for the video, we just left the pin through and away we go. So being that this is a standard switch block blaster, we are not going to run it on a big high C discharge battery. So this is a little 25C, I'm assuming. Yeah, 25 to 50C 11 volt. Runs it quite well, but it's not going to be too high stress. Now I'm not going to shove any gels through it just because of the way it's sitting right now. But we put it on semi-auto and let's hear some Apache crack. So we can actually really hear that Apache, but you can also hear that motor winding. There's nothing we can get rid of it. Whilst everything is spinning perfectly freely, that pinion to bevel mesh is just not perfect. And then we go into auto. Got a really nice crack. So, SIG MCX, LDT, stock, but upgraded with the Apache, Aztech barrel, and then of course the mods to suit long barrel, etc, etc. Oh, and Aztech piston head. There you go, our first SIG MCX. My final thoughts on it is I'm not a big fan of the front wire, but it is a really, really, really nice piece of kit. Really, really nice. If they were available in something a little bit bigger for the real firearm nuts out there, the SIG Virtus, which is the folding stock variant and longer forend, that would be a really nice piece of kit, and I would be definitely interested in one. That's it. I'm going to sign off.